Hello, my name is Damien Lidoren and my goal here is to show you how to use the Veda command line tool to unit test skill++ packages in a Jenkins CI instance. So we are going to start with a completely empty work area in which I'm going to install Veda. So let's go to the Veda homepage, which is crosstwine.com/Veda. And here we can see the different versions, and the latest one here we can browse the release notes or download the tarball. We are going to do that. Let's get back here, and there we are. If we unpack that guy, we can see a bunch of files, and notably here we have some binaries, so we are going to add that directory to our Unix path. And now which Veda tells me that the command is available there, and I can try Veda help. It's going to show me the Veda man page in the system manual page viewer. So Veda works a bit like Git or other such tools. You have a number of subcommands, and if you want help about, let's say, the test package subcommand here, we can try and do Veda help that subcommand, and we get a particular man page for Veda test package. Okay, so far so good. So now let's try Veda new work area. This is a command to create a new work area. My project. And it complains. It complains because it cannot find a skill interpreter. And the reason is that it looked into Veda skill bin, and that is not set. Then it looked into CDS home, and that is not set either. So let's set one of these variables. And see if it works better. And indeed it does. Now we have my project here. So a subdirectory. If I list it with A to see all the files, we can see a .cdsn, .cdsinit, .veda, that's the work area marker for Veda, and then cds.lib. So now let's try and create a new package, so a collection of source files. Packages are created with the new package command. We are going to call this one foo, and is going to use skill++. But Veda complains because it doesn't know who I am. It needs that to fill some of the templates and so on. So it suggests that I can fix it using Veda Doctor. So let's just do that. Ask me for my name. This is not my real name, but that email address should work. And now if I try again, it created a package there. So if we have a look at that package, it's basically just a directory with a titular file, that is a file that has the same name as the directory, so it's foo.il. It can be either il or ils, does not matter. If we have a look at that file, it has been filled with a bunch of things, notably author there. It's put my name and address, and it created a small function here, an example function. So it's called just hello, because it is within an IS file, and that IS file is scoped with a big let there, so that hides local functions. It also puts a small helper function there, which can be used to export local functions to the outside of the package, and it's being called here to export hello as my foo hello. So it's going to concatenate the prefix and the suffix to create the external function name. So let's do a git init in here so that it's done, and then we can also create another package called, let's call this one bar, and going to be skim package, skill++ package 2. And you can see that it automatically understood that it had to create the package in pkg bar and not in the current directory. So if I go there, basically the same thing as with foo. Except that now it's using my bar as a prefix, but apart that it's the same. But what we are going to do here is to add a directive here. We are going to say that this package requires foo. So that means that for it to load successfully, foo ought to have been loaded before. So okay, this is done, and now we can try the Veda new Jenkins job command with our two packages, and I'm going to generate XML files. Let's call them testing package name.xml. The %s here is going to be replaced by the package name, and I have two of them, so it's going to create, it's going to complain because I forgot to do this. Let's try again. And now it's creating testing foo and testing bar. You can see that the %s has been replaced by the package name. And if we have a look at foo here, you can see that it's a big XML file. That's how Jenkins stores its projects. So that's a job definition. And the reason I'm showing you that is because if I run that command again, but now I'm adding auto trigger as an option, and I refresh my editor, you can see that a new section was added here saying that bar is a child project of foo. And that tells Jenkins that every time foo is successfully built, bar should be rebuilt too. Okay, so that's it for that example. Now, don't need that. What we are going to need, on the other hand, is a Jenkins instance. So let's just do that from scratch too. I'm going to create a Jenkins home directory, copy Jenkins 4 here. It can be downloaded on the Jenkins website, but this is faster. And we are going to run it using telling him that Jenkins home is the current directory. Java how to start that web archive here, and we are going to use the HTTP port 1920. So Jenkins needs a bit of time to start, and then it tells us that it's fully up and running. So we can probably test it, but let's go and double check that. So on localhost 1920, you can see that Jenkins indeed has loaded. So now let's manage Jenkins, and the first thing we have to do is to install 2 plugins. The first one is mandatory. It's Git plugin. It's used for checking out the source code and so on. And the second one, it's just recommended, is the XUnit plugin. This one is going to be able to interpret our test results and show them to us in a pretty way. So now that we have done that, coming back to our work area, we are going to set a global environment variable, Jenkins URL, and that's going to be 1920, the URL of our Jenkins server. Once we have done that, we can from that URL, JNLP jars, we can download Jenkins CLI.jar, and that is a jar archive that contains a small Jenkins command line interface. And we can test it by doing this. It's not jar, it's Java, jar. And it's going to contact the Jenkins server, and it worked. It was able to retrieve a list of available commands. And this worked like this because we set the Jenkins URL environment variable. Otherwise, we would have to pass it on the command line, but this is just easier. So now that we know that the connection works, we can try and use the Veda new Jenkins job command again, but we are now going to create the jobs on the running server. We have to tell it that the jar is here. We don't have to tell it about the URL because, well, it's still in that Jenkins URL variable, so that's handy. We want the job to be created as screencast package name like this, and we want the job to be auto-triggered by the dependencies. If we do that, it complains because I did not give it the package name, so let's try again with foo and bar. And this is much better, and if we go back to Jenkins and we reload the pages, we can we can see that it created the 2 jobs there. Let's try and run foo manually. It would pick up the job after maximum 5 minutes. It tries and pulls every 5 minutes, but this way is faster. And the job fails, and the reason it fails is because we haven't created any commits in the repository. So let's go and fix that. Initial commit is a fine name for now, and this is okay. We come back here, we do play, and surprise, surprise, it still fails. But now if we go and look at the console output, so this is just because the previous try did not have a correct Git repository. It's no big deal. But we can see here that it basically was able to run the job, and it printed the things, but some test failures occurred. So if we go back to the job there, it tells us that there was one test failure indeed. If we go there, it complains that it got T instead of 42. It was expecting 42, it got T. And the test was single word. So to see what happens, we can perhaps try and run the test in here in our development work area. So let's try and do a Veda test package. I don't need to specify the package because I'm inside foo, and if I do that, it runs, and indeed it tells me that it got T instead of the expected 42. There is a single test file in here. It's the foo test one. So all the files that end in -test.il or -test.ils are going to be picked up as test files. So let's see what happened there. And basically it's just a silly error that was created on purpose. Our test always returns T because it calls the myFooHello command, and that myFooHello is basically printf. Printf always returns T no matter what the arguments are. So we are going to remove the comment and say that the expected result is T. So we save that, come back here, test package again, and now the test passes. Very good. So let's go back to Jenkins, screencast foo, build now. And build tree was not successful. Oh, that's unexpected. Okay, let's try again, let's see what's happening here. Still saying the same thing. It's because I forgot to commit my test. So indeed, if I go do a git status there, foo test is modified, I better commit that, cd test, and there we are. So now after 5 minutes maximum, Jenkins would pick up this change, but let's not wait for that and schedule a build. And see, now it was successful, so that's good news indeed. The test result, it tells us that there are no failures. If I come here, we can see that there was a very good improvement in the number of failing tests in here. At build 5, we went from 1 to 0, so that's good. And it tells me that downstream projects here, screencast bar, failed. So let's first go back to the console output there, and we can see that it tells me that it triggered a new build of screencast bar because foo was successful. The problem with screencast bar is that, and you can see that it's a second run because Jenkins already started it once before. It periodically checks for new changes and runs the tests. But yeah, here we are not so lucky because obviously there were no candidate revisions. We haven't committed anything in the bar repository. Anyway, I'm going to let you fix that by yourself. And just if we go back to the home page here and we briefly go through the release notes documentation, we can see that this screencast was basically this scenario. It's the new Jenkins job man page, and so you can try it by yourself there at home. But there are many other examples. Actually, there is a full set of manual pages there. One for each command, even for the help command even has its own manual page. There is also a bit of API documentation. There are 3 packages that are delivered with Veda at this point in time. The first one is a small CSV parser, so it shows you how to use it there. If you have a book.csv file with just that content, you can basically call this function, and with that file name, and it's going to pass it to a list of lists. And note how it doesn't choke on the crazy characters in the first column of the 3rd line. So this is the API documentation: parse file, parse lines, parse port. Let's take parse file, and actually in this case it's an exported function. It's exported from parse file, which was local, and if we click here we can jump to the source code of that function, so it's there. And you can see that the documentation is auto-generated, so this is auto-generated from the source code. So that's the API documentation. Something else that we have in here that you might be interested in is a small editor mode. So it's currently a release candidate. It's not as robust as the rest of the tool chain, but it's basically a web-based editor which provides syntax highlighting and so on. It can work in infix as well as prefix syntax, does not matter. It has actually fairly advanced features. If I do this, I select that, I do Shift Tab, it actually auto-indents the lines, so I can, and you can see that the indentation is pretty smart. And it also has features like this is written in infix syntax, but if I click the reformat button, it's going to generate a traditional Lisp notation version of the code. And now if we select it again and we say that we want infix calls, then it's going to use infix notation for the calls, but still not using operators. We can use operators and no infix calls, or we can actually combine the two and we get this. So feel free to test and play with this editor. There is a link to an empty editor too. So it's currently not released on the same schedule as the main Veda tools. It's going to be at some point, but for now it's you can play with it like that. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope those tools will be useful to you. I would certainly appreciate any feedback that you would have, and thank you again.